minute. Exiles TV for Thursday, the 28th. I've lost track.
28th.
28th. There we go.
A 2 and an 8.
January 2021.
So I thought that this was going to be one of these days that you wouldn't forget, like, Pearl Harbor Day and the day JFK was shot. And I forgot 35 years ago today. In fact, right about this time of day was when the Challenger exploded shortly after liftoff, killing all 7 aboard, including the first teacher in space, Krista McAuliffe. And it was one of these things that was captured completely live. And that made it even more graphic. It really burned it into your mind.
Well, I think it took all of America a couple of seconds to realize something's not right. I mean, we saw it going up. We saw it going up. We heard the command go to throttle up, and then that huge plume of fire and smoke in the sky. And I remember I was at WFPR WHMD in Hammond. I was on the air, but we were, we put on a succession of songs, and we were watching in the newsroom on the television. And one of my fellow radio announcers said, "That ain't right. That doesn't look right." And I said, well, I said something like, "What happened?" And then that's when the news director says, "I think the shuttle just exploded."
Yeah, I will remember. I was at a meeting at Baton Rouge Airport, as a matter of fact, and they had gotten away from televising every space launch because starting with the Mercury stuff in the 60s.
They were routine-ish and they'd gotten frankly dull.
Yeah, and this was basically just this was just kind of a flying UPS truck, if you think about it at that point.
This thing was significant because it was the first time a civilian, a complete civilian, one of us, had been taken into space.
And so they were going to televise this, and I was at a meeting at the airport, and one of the administrative assistants came in and said, "Do y'all want to watch the launch? It's about to happen." And we all said, "Yeah." And we walked into the conference room and had a TV, and kaboom. And, I think one of the best jobs in the world is to be the narrator for a space launch, but it's also one of the worst jobs in the world. Because I remember that guy, and he stayed very, very calm, and he said, "Obviously, a major malfunction."
Major malfunction.
And then you started to get the footage from the fighter planes that chase it. I mean, they chase these space shots all the way up to about 70,000 feet. And they get very close to them. And you could see fireball and debris falling, and everybody just went, "Oh my God." And somebody said, "Did you see an escape pod?"
There was no escape pod in
there. There wasn't on that one. There is now.
They did redesign the space shuttles where the entire crew compartment could break loose in the event of a catastrophe like that, and if they could survive the explosion, float back to Earth via parachute. But there was no escape pod.
But I mean, that was just it was just an absolutely graphic tragedy. 7 people snuffed out pretty much immediately live on international TV, and I'd always thought that it would be a day we would all remember because so many of us saw it. I mean, the hype on this flight, because of Krista McAuliffe, really had the nation fascinated by this.
Well, Bill, maybe a contributing factor is the fact that America has turned away from the space program.
Yeah, we don't have our own vehicles anymore.
I could say which president got us basically out of the manned space program, but it doesn't matter. But we abandoned building any more shuttles in 1990. We used the shuttles up into the early 2000s, and then we retired the entire fleet.
And we had another one that came apart on re-entry.
Columbia came apart on re-entry, and that was like 17 years later.
Yeah.
After Challenger. So with 2 major shuttle accidents, we abandoned the space shuttle program, and we've been hitching rides with the Russians ever since.
Yep. And we're probably going to be hitching rides with Elon Musk into the future. But
Well, I like the idea of privatizing space travel.
But again, I think it's very, very interesting that when I turned on this screen, if it hadn't been their top headline, I would have completely forgotten. I would have not been driving home going, oh, was the Challenger today or was it yesterday? I think it was somewhere around this time. And I think that's kind of a shame. And that's one of these things where it's kind of, I kind of beat myself up for saying, a huge historical event that you witnessed and you don't even remember?
I think collectively the country no longer has any kind of romance with manned exploration of space. Nowadays you talk about sending men to Mars, and the reaction you get more than any other is, why? What the hell is there? What do we can't live there. Why?
Well, I've always thought Sir Edmund Hillary's response to things like that was the best one. When they asked him, when they asked him, why do you want to climb Mount Everest? He said, because it's there.
And Mars has a very close connection to this television station, the whole Mars mission and endeavors to go to Mars. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Right now, the clock is showing. Marty hasn't wrapped on the tabletop yet, but it is time.
Who is it? It's Marty. Take a break. Okay.
Time for our first commercial break. Thanks, Marty. We'll be right back. Exiles TV.
Taste the feeling.
Hi, I'm Bobby Yarborough with Manda Fine Meats. Here at Manda, we know what the folks of South Louisiana love. They love great flavored smoked sausage, delicious deli meats, and specialty items like boudin and andouille sausage. Manda Fine Meats has been providing these products since 1947. We produce them right here in Baton Rouge, so you know you're always getting the freshest product at your local grocery store. Manda Fine Meats. Taste the fresh local flavor in everything we make. Make it Manda every time.
Welcome back to Exiles TV.
So
Glad to have you.
Why do you think it is, Bill, that America collectively forgets things that we thought that we? I'm sure not everybody forgot. I mean, there are aviation and aerospace aficionados that probably have this on their wall. But there is, generally speaking, unless you remind us, we tend to forget.
Well, I think there's a couple things that come into play. I'm not kidding. I'm mad at myself for not remembering this. This is one of the few occasions in history where I was actually moved to tears while I was watching this happen. Because there were just so many implications. And I'm mad at myself that I forgot. But I think part of it, Kevin, is we have, and this is not necessarily a bad thing, we've made manned space travel kind of a routine thing. We expect it. As I said, this shuttle basically became a flying UPS truck for most of its life. It was supplying the International Space Station. and they were testing new equipment for EVAs and things like that. And part of that's a good thing. The bad thing is that I believe, and this is my opinion, so if you want to be mad at somebody, be mad at me. I believe we've lost every sense of history in this nation unless it is some sort of a political history.
Socio-political.
Yeah.
Socio-political.
You've got people that can't tell you when World War II happened.
God, I saw a video on one of these man on the street microphone interview things on YouTube the other day, and a guy was asking people in what year was the War of 1812.
I know, God.
And good Lord, how many people were stumped by that question? That's like who's buried in Grant's tomb.
But you can show them 150 pictures and say, pick out Jay-Z, and they'll get it 95% of the time. But
Who's Pitbull?
Yeah. He's got his own XM radio channel. Or he did. Rotates through. But the thing is, I think we've lost a sense of history, particularly of things like this. I think you have a lot of instructors at the elementary and middle and high school level that feel kids don't need to know about a space shuttle blowing up. They need to know more about, Susan B. Anthony. And I don't say that one is more important than the other, but I say there's an agenda that says, well, kids don't need to hear about this because
it's unpleasant.
It was just, it was a contractor that made a mistake in the booster, and it was a very expensive program, and it ended in tragedy, and they don't need to hear about tragedy. We have lost a sense of holding dignity with history, whether it's good or bad. And the thing is, we also have people who teach history, particularly to younger people, that want to make judgments. History is a series of snapshots in time, and they stand alone. It had 7 crew members. It exploded 73 seconds after takeoff. The investigation confirmed that Morton Thiokol had a defective O-ring in a solid rocket booster that ignited, and that's pretty much the end of the story. You don't need to say, well, we spent a lot of money on a space program, and because I think most people realize that when you strap people to rockets and light the back end of it, occasionally something's going to go boom. They all knew that risk.
There's a wonderful line from the actor Steve Buscemi in movie Armageddon. Bruce Willis, remember the one where the asteroid was coming in and they decided to intercept it, land on it, drill into it, plant a nuke, blow it to pieces. But Steve Buscemi at launch says, hey, I don't know what you're worried about. We're all just sitting on a 2-ton, 200-ton atomic bomb built by the lowest bidders in 17 states. It's like, it's a risk. Yeah. Anytime that you launch humans into space, it's a risk. And they're taking their lives in their hands by going up there. The other thing I thought about, the shuttle disaster 35 years ago gave us an expression that is still used today. How many times when someone loses their temper do you hear somebody say he blew an O-ring? And that's blow an O-ring was an O-ring that blew at the juncture to the solid rocket booster. They said the O-ring got too cold the night before. This was a January launch.
Yep.
And even in Florida sometimes the nights get bitterly cold. And there had been a hard freeze that night, and the O-ring had become somewhat brittle, and that caused a leak. And the rest is history.
And that O-ring was 340 feet in the air. And if there was a hard freeze on the ground, every 35 feet you're going to lose about 1.5 degrees. So it was probably about 10 degrees colder up there than the hard freeze on the ground.
But it was the beginning of the end of the American manned space program. Now, we've done amazing things with robotic exploration, I think. And some people say that because we've done amazing things with robotic exploration, we shouldn't risk more American lives in space.
Here's a little test, not to put you on the spot, but there were 7 astronauts that died in the Challenger. You know the name of Krista McAuliffe. Can you name 2 others who died on that?
No, actually, I can only name one other, and that's the other woman. I'm sorry, I can't. I can only name Judy Resnick as the only other female astronaut on that ship.
I think that most people would not even be able to name Krista McAuliffe.
The teacher in space?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
unfortunately, maybe I don't know why that is that I can remember the names of the 2 women on board, but none of the men.
well, and that's, and I think that makes the point that we have gotten kind of fast and loose with information of historical significance. And I'm not telling anybody how they should feel, but I do think if you've got kids in middle school and high school, ask them today whether they were taught this, whether anybody remembered it, whether they were taught it in previous years about the Challenger. And if they say no, then you ought to have a talk with the school board or the principal. I will bet you even in the best private schools, in your Episcopals, and your Catholic highs, and your Parkview Baptist, and your Dunham schools, I will bet you that the current events teacher, the history teacher, social studies teacher is not talking about this, even if it's only for 5 minutes.
Yep.
And a lot of the kids will go, what? I never heard of that before.
By the
which
way,
is another problem.
And I'm glad to have news resources. Here are the names of those 7 astronauts: Michael Smith, Richard Scobie, Judith Resnick, Ronald McNair, Ellison Onizuka, Gregory Jarvis, and of course, America's first teacher in space, Krista McAuliffe. So we mourn them all, we mourn their loss, and I mourn the loss of an active U.S. space program. I hope someday we return to that.
Well, and again, not that my skirt is so clean on this, because I remember neither the date nor the names of those who were lost in the second space shuttle tragedy.
And there was no celebrity in the second one.
No celebrity in the second one.
Krista McAuliffe was a national celebrity.
Yeah.
We're
It's
going
a
to
shame.
take another break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little about the crime problem in our city with our district attorney, East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney Hiller Moore, on Exiles TV.
Live and play on the fairway at Greystone Golf and Country Club, a serene, challenging golf destination located in Denham Springs. For tee times and membership opportunities, go to greystonecountryclub.com.
From appetizers, pasta dishes, and entrees, La Cantea takes pride in preparing all the Italian cuisine we know you love. Enjoy live music every Thursday through Saturday from 6 to 9, happy hour weekdays from 3 to 6, and brunch on Sundays from 11 to 2, as well as dinner portion-sized lunch specials for under $10. Visit our website to view our menu and book a party or meeting in our large banquet room. Once you try La Cantea, your Italian dining will change forever.
No one can stop me when I taste the feeling. Nothing could ever bring me down. Nothing could ever bring me down. Taste the feeling.
Hi, I am Dr. Farrell Frugier Jr., and I am a general dentist at Frugier Family Dentistry. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I went to Catholic High School, LSU, and LSU School of Dentistry in New Orleans, where I received my DDS degree in 1986. I always have and will continue to be committed to continuing my education, to invest in technology which makes the diagnosis and delivery of dentistry more thorough, more comfortable, and more aesthetically pleasing. In our practice, we are here to serve the patients. We want to improve their quality of life and to develop relationships with our patients. In dentistry, we have a chance to impact lives on a daily basis, not just by doing dentistry, but by getting to know them and being a part of their life. We also believe in giving back to our community. So every year, we give back to the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank, Toys for Tots, and Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center. Please stop by and visit our office. We would love to take care of you and your family.
Team Honda wants to thank you for once again making us Louisiana's #1 new car dealer by offering you never-before-seen savings. For the first time ever, get 0% financing up to 60 months on some of your favorite Honda models. Get thousands in savings right now at Team Honda on Siegen Lane.
Welcome back to Exiles TV. Glad to have you with us. We often enjoy the company of 19th JDC District Attorney Hiller Moore on this program. And there are lots of things that pass through the DA's office and that we can talk about. But unfortunately, all too often, Hiller, we're talking about murder, gunfire, stabbings. We were told that we have set a record as the most violent January in terms of homicides in the history of Baton Rouge.
As far as I know, surely it has been. Unfortunately, last night we had another homicide. A young man was killed, 21 years old, and that made 15 for January. I think the biggest month that I recall was November several years ago, many years ago. But January has seen some high numbers, but when I say high, 10. But generally, January has been a lower number, holiday times, until some recent years. But yeah, surely we're at the highest month that I can remember.
We had Sergeant Belford Johnson on with us yesterday. He's talking about programs that they're trying to advance to intervene with these kids way ahead of time. The Explorer post that they're talking about sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Reopening the police cadet program sounds like a great idea. But we come back to the fact that all of these take time, and there's a lot of people that don't feel like we have a lot of time.
That's true, and everything takes time. But, really, in order to really, my opinion, to get a hold of all of this, we have to start with where it all starts, and that's with the child. And where's that child being raised? What's his family like? What's his home like? What is the neighborhood like? What is his education system like? What kind of opportunities does he have? What did he miss? What did maybe we miss? So I think a lot of this is driven by education or lack of education. And so that's a hard fix. I mean, it's one I think is obvious. And to that point, I would really like to try to look at both the defendant and the victims of homicide. And I'd like to know what their educational background is. And I think I already know what the answer is, but I'd like to study that, particularly for 2019. Although 2020 was so bad, I think the data with school records would be poor because of school. But looking at 2019, I'd like to know where were these kids, where were they in school? How far did they get? And I think that's going to be telltale.
Which state information on dropouts tells us that the average decides to drop out by the time they've hit 9th grade.
Yep.
That if you can keep them through 9th grade, they're quite liable to go on and graduate.
And maybe you can help me with this guy's name. I was struggling with it yesterday during our podcast. Very eminent criminologist, sociologist, educator, very good-looking, athletic, African-American guy, probably in his mid-50s, and he's written several books. And he came to Baton Rouge and did a seminar about kids that are in trouble. And he said, here's the test. You go and find a bunch of 6th graders, and you hand them all a book that is a 6th grade reading level book, and if they can't read it, go ahead and build their jail cells now.
Whoa.
And I can't remember this guy's name, but he's absolutely right.
Can't recall the name either, but yeah, I've seen that before, and he's absolutely right. Without an education, I mean, it's hard to get a job, hard to keep a job. So I think that's a key. And we have set up a meeting with the new superintendent, because I'd like to talk to him about our city's truancy problem and dropout rate and that, because we need to work on this together.
Mr. Moore, though, a lot of people would consider that those values that tell you pull the trigger, don't pull the trigger, don't even pick up the gun, these sort of values should be learned at home. But they're obviously not being learned at home. So is it time maybe that education does start to take on that role, and let's teach not only read, write, and arithmetic, but some good old-fashioned morality and values?
Sure, and I mean, that's true. So it has to start at the home. If it does not, then school teachers need to pick up that, and it's a big burden for them, but surely
Yes,
it has to happen.
huge.
It has to happen.
And how do you go about implementing something like that? I mean, that's a huge
Well,
question.
and we also, I think, need to teach conflict resolution,
Oh, God.
which we don't have. So these kids who do not have that background at home in the education, they don't have the filters that say stop, picking up the gun, pointing the gun, shooting the gun, stop, what's the consequence of that? So when they can't see that or feel it or don't know about it, it's easier for them to do.
And we see time and again when young people are convicted, they can't believe it. They're dumbstruck. They can't believe. They burst into tears because it's like you're 19 and you're going to prison for 30 years at least.
Yeah.
It's like nobody is reaching them early in life and telling them there are consequences for violent action.
True, and it has to happen.
When somebody is placed under arrest for a gun crime and they're like 19, do you have access to their juvenile records, or are those sealed even from you?
No, we have access to all of their criminal history. And so we do look at those gun files. And unfortunately, in Baton Rouge, we receive around 1,600 to 1,800 gun files a year. Now, that includes homicide, armed robbery, assault, stolen firearms, but that's a big number.
It is.
And that means that there's a lot of weapons being seized off of the streets as well. But unfortunately, oftentimes when we see a gun case, it's 3 or 4 people in a car, and there's one gun. And the gun's between the seats or on the floor. Who has custody and control? Who has knowledge, ownership, possession of that weapon? Generally, the one felon in the car will not take the heat for that weapon. Somebody else in the car says, that's mine. And then it's stolen, and police have to ask them questions. If no one takes custody of their gun, how do you prove it's theirs? That's when DNA comes in. So now you have to swab everyone in the car, their mouth for a buccal swab. Then you have to get the gun swabbed. Then you have to send it to the crime lab for DNA testing, which they're swamped with DNA on everything because we've kind of given up a lot on some investigations because now you have DNA. And if you lift the handle of a car door for burglaries and there are 50 in your neighborhood, swab all 50 car doors, send it on to and then some magic thing will pop up like CSI, and it stresses the crime lab.
It doesn't happen before the second commercial in real life.
Sure.
But you brought up CSI, and that leads me, because I was thinking about CSI. What about gunshot residue? How long is that? I mean, what's the window on testing someone to see if they fired a gun?
So that's kind of grown in disfavor, and there's really no testing done more for the residue on your hand. So you're talking about the blowback residue. First of all, if you just hold the gun, you could possibly have residue from previous shootings.
Okay.
If you shoot it, blowback would be on the back of your hand.
Right.
But that generally is not tested for anymore because of the science. So rarely used.
So when we talk about juvenile criminals, do they have the same prescriptions? Is there such thing as a juvenile felony to where once they become 18, if they have a gun in their possession, now you can put them away for a long time? Do you have access to that, or do they get a King's X on that?
We have access to that, but they get a walk on their juvenile conviction. I can't not use that juvenile conviction to enhance a adult conviction later on. But you can see some kids that are waving their hands at us that I'm going to be trouble. And that's the kids that we really want to get to early on, because surely some kids make mistakes. But the ones that it's not a mistake, it's a habit, it's a lifestyle because of how they were groomed. That's the ones we really need to look out for.
If someone's been released after serving juvenile life, and then as an adult they commit a felony, is there any added punishment because they've already served juvenile life, or are they invulnerable from anything?
We surely consider that. I mean, juvenile life is not long, and now you're a juvenile when you're 18 and below, and you serve to 21.
Right.
So that's not a lot of time that you're serving, but surely we do take a look at what's the crime for juvenile life. It's murder, generally. And we take a look at that and consider that.
I wonder about the juvenile justice system, and this is a much longer debate than we have time for, but I wonder if it does not serve the public interest as well as most people think it serves the juvenile criminal. I remember years and years ago, there was an organized gang that was burglarizing cars and stealing valuable things like T-tops And I know they stole the T-tops off my 300ZX twice. The second time, when I went out to see I had no T-tops, was right when the sheriff's department was coming in and grabbing him. He still had it in his hand. And he is yelling at this deputy, "Go ahead, take me in. I'll be home before you have your dinner. I'm a juvenile, you can't do," to me, at the top of his lungs. And I'm like, you know what? This poor deputy's got to listen to this stuff. And the kid's right. I mean, do we need to re-examine our juvenile justice system a little bit?
Well, surely that happens on occasion. I've seen that happen, and surely oftentimes they do get out quickly. I think the theory is that they're better off at home than in a detention center, which is not always.
You're not looking at these homes real well, are they?
Always true, but the national debate now is going away from prosecuting juveniles, particularly prosecuting them as an adult, being harsh on juveniles because of the makeup of the brain, development of the brain. So things are actually going quite the opposite way from the way you may be feeling. But it all really comes down to what kind of services can we get to that kid. And it's not just that one juvenile, it's his brother, sister, it's his mom.
And you're talking preemptively too, right?
Correct. And so when you're in juvenile court, sometimes with the parents, you can tell why the kid is maybe acting the way he is. So I think getting services to these youngsters way early on is the key to it all, and identifying them early. And maybe that's where maybe the school can kind of help us of identifying that child who's a potential problem that teachers can see.
When a juvenile has been convicted and sent away to juvenile detention, are there programs in place in juvenile detention to try to rehabilitate them, or are they just serving time?
You know, I'm not positive of the answer, the details of it, but surely not enough. And more than likely more housed than taught. Mm-hmm. And they're not there for a very long time either. And depends on where they go. But surely we need more services for sure in prisons and detention centers all around.
It makes me sad just to see so many people by the time they're 18, 19, it's like your life is done, buddy.
Yeah.
Sometimes by the time they're 14, their life is done.
Unfortunately.
And the thing is, we can't really go after the parents. I remember when we had an increased action on truancy in East Baton Rouge Parish, and I thought that was a great idea.
About 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm thinking, okay, this is clearly abusing this child from a parental, or neglecting at the very least, or endangering. And they're going to grab these parents after 4 or 5 truants, and they're going to charge them with something. But you can't.
You can in some limited circumstances, but that's really a longer story. And I'd like to, if we have a chance, we can surely talk about.
Let's take a break, and we will talk about that. More with D.A. Hiller Moore. We're going to talk about juvenile crime a little bit on Exiles TV. Stick around.
Balello's Furniture and Appliances, your dependable independent. Depend on us for service, for selection, for price. Get huge Whirlpool savings. Shop now and save on Whirlpool appliances throughout the store. Plus, experience our price match guarantee and ask about special financing. You can depend on the know-how of people who live appliances every day. Balello's Furniture and Appliances, your dependable independent with nationwide buying power.
Hello guys, it's Debbie. It's time. I've got a brand new location. 10510 Airline Highway, Baton Rouge, next to After 5 Tuxedos. We have the perfect spot to get all your wedding and formal wear needs. Come see our one-of-a-kind name brand and get great prices. With 30 years experience, the best customer service anywhere. It's Debbie's Bridal, Airline Highway, Baton Rouge. See you soon.
Hi, I'm Hurricane Betsy Barnes.
And I'm Dr. Kay Siller with the Rocket Right Show.
We are two busy blondes on the go showing off life in Louisiana.
Watch us on Pelican Sports Network.
And Talk 107.3 FM. Check local listings for times.
Of all the auto brands on the road today, only one has been named the best auto brand for 6 straight years. That brand is Mazda. Come shop and save on the award-winning lineup of new Mazdas right now at Baton Rouge's Mazda dealer, Team Mazda on Airline.
I owed the IRS $10,000.
The IRS garnished my wages.
They put a lien on my house.
I'm self-employed and didn't report all my income. They claim I owe a lot more than I do.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency in the world. They do not give up until you pay.
I couldn't sleep. We were being audited. I called Tax Solutions Now, and a great big weight was lifted off my shoulders.
I called Tax Solutions Now, and they got the IRS off my back.
Tax Solutions Now had my wage garnishment lifted in 48 hours.
Tax Solutions Now can get you help. Our agents know the rules, can stop the pain, and get you the best deal.
Tax Solutions Now saved my business.
I qualified for the Fresh Start program. I paid less than I owed.
We connect you with a team of former IRS agents and tax professionals who get the IRS off your back. Time is running out. Call Tax Solutions now.
Call 800-778-4345. 800-778-4345.
Hey, welcome back to Exiles TV. Bill Profito over there. I'm Kevin Gallagher. And our guest is Hiller Moore, District Attorney for the 19th Judicial District, that is East Baton Rouge Parish. The most populous parish in the state, by the way. More people living in this parish than anywhere else. So it's a big job.
So we were talking about juvenile justice, and I said, sometimes to me, and I'm sure I'm not alone, it seems to serve the juveniles a lot more than it serves the community as a whole. And there's very little you can do when you get to parents who encourage things like truancy or turn the blind eye or even encourage fighting and violent behavior. There's very little that you can do with them except in some certain circumstances. And I was going to let you kind of expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard to determine, for most people what's going on in juvenile court. But I can tell you that all the parties there's the DA, the public defender in the court, and all those that service them, they work hard on these kids, and I'm sure they get frustrated just like we all do. But for the public, you don't see that unless it's a crime of violence, because it is a secret process. It's closed. So you really don't get to see all of it. But surely we're lacking in services that we can provide to these kids. But when we went to the break, we talked about truancy, and we were talking about the school system and things. And about 8 years ago, I think it was, that we wanted to meet with all of the parents of the kids who were truant. And we're talking about repeated truancies, to find out what's the problem. Why isn't your son or daughter coming to school? And that took us 3 or 4 months to have these meetings every day at the different schools, where the parents would come in, they were given a letter, say your son or daughter has missed so many days, 5, 10 days, whatever it was at the time. And in sitting there, it took us a long time. And in sitting down and talking to the parents, there was a whole host of issues. Why the child was not in school, was truant, was late, dropped out. It was a bunch that we really didn't understand. A lot of them were medical issues for why they weren't there. A lot of times the parents had no idea when the child was skipping school. A lot of times the parent was frustrated with their own child and what they were doing, couldn't control the child. Some you could tell maybe it was more of a parent problem. So there's a lot of reasons why kids are not in school, and it could be they're embarrassed because of clothes that they don't have to wear. There's a lot of things that we did learn. The problem with the schools are when you have that high volume of people that are truant in school, you have generally one truancy officer, for lack of a better word, that has to monitor all the children who have not made it to school that day. If you have 5, you can call 5 parents and find out where's the child, why is he late. If you have 10, 20, 25, 100 on a day, makes it extremely difficult to keep up with that documentation, because there is a crime that allows a parent to be charged, and we did charge some parents through misdemeanor summonses when the kid was habitually truant, 50 times maybe.
Wow.
And the idea was to get the parent in court before a judge to say, tell me what your problems are, how can we fix the problem, not how can we prosecute you and convict you, and we would dismiss the charge when the parent resolved the problem. So it is a big issue. It continues to be an issue, and we need to find a way around it. I'm afraid what 2020 has done by disrupting school and being on a routine basis, trying to get back. And so, now having a new superintendent, I think it's a good time to maybe start all over again.
I've always believed, due to my Catholic school upbringing, that shame and permanence on your record plays a big part in keeping you from doing bad things.
Yeah.
And while I understand that the proceedings are closed as far as the juvenile, the fact is the parents get a pass on having their neighbors and their colleagues and the people they work with and their other relatives knowing that they allowed this kid or enabled this kid in some way to commit this awful act. And I think they're really getting a pass on the good old guilt and shame because everything is kept shielded.
I'm sure that's part of it. So, I mean, a lot of times the neighborhood knows because the victim is going to be someone close to that person or a neighbor. So generally, you know, and people do know. But outside of juvenile and with adults as well, or both, I'm not sure that being arrested, being charged, being the allegations against you, or so much of that shame anymore to a lot of the people that
had occurred to
deal
me.
with. So that's
No
the scary part.
no
because
big deal.
You're probably right.
Look at the social media posts once somebody's been arrested. It's not, I'm sorry, man, I really want to get this resolved, want to do better. It's quite the opposite. So, and that's not for everybody. So that's something that we see that doesn't help us.
Yeah.
And maybe encourages more bad behavior because it promotes maybe what they were doing, which is not good, particularly when it comes to guns and shooting at people. They want to let you know that I have a gun and I shot at someone, or I'm dealing drugs and have a lot of money. It doesn't make sense, but obviously it's happening.
If you don't mind, since this is not in your jurisdiction, and since you just heard about it from us, okay, so you got these 5 kids, all juveniles, in Lake Charles. 4 of them had an argument with the 5th one. They follow her into the Walmart. They actually go to the cutlery section where the knives are not ready for use. You have to actually unpackage them. And they corner this 15-year-old, and they each stab her. She subsequently dies. But they post it on, like, YouTube. Mm-hmm. Now, that's pretty much dead bang evidence there.
Sure. I wanted to say I'm shocked, but it's not. It's unfortunate. It's not shocking. Using a knife is shocking because generally people are cowards and they shoot from far away with a semi-automatic weapon where there's a little trace. But to be up and personal like that, that's even more of a horrible type of encounter, particularly for it. Can you imagine the victim going through that? But man, it's surely like to know the backgrounds of these kids, find out where they came from, their household, their parents, their education. That's going to be, it could be an indictment because generally it's the police and the criminal justice system, prosecutors and judges get indicted for crimes and murders that occur. But you know, before they get to us, there's some things that happen. So I think those indictments are always a lot of times false. That we should look at other things, families and schools and education, and all of us together. It's not just pointing a finger. It's not a police problem. It's a community problem, and we've got to find that answer and fix it. Because look at communities that have great public education. I bet you their crime rate is different than ours.
From your personal experience here in the 19th, is the perpetrator recording the crime something that's happening more and more and more?
You do see that from time to time, particularly when you have group activity, one group or the other, that want to let everyone know that. So yeah, it does happen. Now, I think it happens more when they're recording it on their phone for themselves, not to maybe put out in the public social media domain, but we will eventually find it if we seize the phone and download the phone. But surely there's a lot of bragging about shootings and crimes.
Wow.
Well, and again, you know, people talk about the reason, for example, you can't give a juvenile who kills a life penalty is because they don't fully understand the consequences. But that is a long-term process. Certainly at 13 and 14, they know right from wrong enough that you don't take knives off the shelf at Walmart and plunge them into somebody's chest. Certainly you can't argue that they don't have sufficient brain power to appreciate that is not the thing to do.
I mean, I can't disagree with you on that, but I'm sure you would find a host of people that would for a variety of reasons. But yeah, it's hard to comprehend that. Again, I'd like to know what their background is and what were you thinking or not at the time, because that's a horrible That's a horrible crime.
Now, we have had cases, and I think there was a factor of this in this Lake Charles case, where the mother of one of the assailants encouraged them to not go in there and steal a knife off the shelf and stab her, but
settle the score was the term.
Settle up business. And she drove them to the Walmart to do so.
That happens, and we see in a lot of the videos that are posted, parents with their child with gun and drugs, and it does happen. That's frightening.
It's terrifying to me.
And
it's like, you say, well, look to the parents, look to the parents. Well, the parent is encouraging their own child to commit a felony.
And as I understand it, as shocking as this thing in Lake Charles was, and the fact that they posted video of them doing it, that there is no way they can be charged as adults because of their age.
No, based on what you told me of their age, that's correct.
Yeah, the assailants were all 13 and 14. One was 12, actually.
So that's tough to.
It's a strange world we live in.
Very dangerous one right now.
Do you think, Hiller, and again, this is speculation, your office serves the people. When you hand out an indictment, it's State of Louisiana versus Kevin Gallagher or Bill Profita. It's not,
Yeah, it's not personal like other.
Yeah, it's not personal. Do you think we're at a point of high anxiety in our area, in many areas of the country, that the system does not have enough controls for the populace, while they have a lot of controls for those that are committing the crimes?
Yes, I mean, to a certain degree, a lot of anxiety going on right now, but it is a difficult time right now. I mean, as 2020 has shown, and now has, although we have flipped the calendar, we haven't flipped the switch at all.
Oh, you're right about
and so
that.
We're still in 2020 mode as far as this month at least goes, and hopefully things are going to slow down and get better throughout the year, because we can only hope that happens, and we're still working on it.
Well, we appreciate the hard work that you and your investigators and your assistant DAs do, and we know the cops are out there banging away at it. Let's hope we can find a way to reach some of these parents and some of these. I mean, I know it's profiling, but it's also evidential that you've got certain areas that are economically depressed, that are also educationally depressed, and you're getting a lot of crime that comes out of there.
And again, most of the people in those areas are very good people that want just what we all want.
Yeah, they want to live in peace, and they don't want their kids out doing these things.
Absolutely.
Or their neighbors' kids out doing these things. Hiller Moore, District Attorney for East Baton Rouge Parish, thanks so much for being with us.
Glad to be here.
Good seeing you
Thank
again.
A brief break, and we will wrap it up in a moment on Exiles TV. Stick around. Here we go.
Caught spiders? Premier Pest Services.
We're making 2021 the year of savings, and it starts right now at Team Toyota. Come get a new 21 Corolla for just $189 a month, or get a 20 Camry for just $19,995. It's a year full of savings starting right now, right here at Team Toyota.
Hi, I am Dr. Farrell Frugier Jr., and I am a general dentist at Frugier Family Dentistry. I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I went to Catholic High School, LSU, and LSU School of Dentistry in New Orleans, where I received my DDS degree in 1986. I always have and will continue to be committed to continuing my education, to invest in technology which makes the diagnosis and delivery of dentistry more thorough, more comfortable, and more aesthetically pleasing. In our practice, we are here to serve the patients. We want to improve their quality of life and to develop relationships with our patients. In dentistry, we have a chance to impact lives on a daily basis, not just by doing dentistry, but by getting to know them and being a part of their life. We also believe in giving back to our community. So every year, we give back to the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank, Toys for Tots, and Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center. Please stop by and visit our office. We would love to take care of you and your family.
From appetizers, pasta dishes, and entrees, La Contea takes pride in preparing all the Italian cuisine we know you love. Enjoy live music every Thursday through Saturday from 6 to 9, happy hour weekdays from 3 to 6, and brunch on Sundays from 11 to 2, as well as dinner portion-sized lunch specials for under $10. Visit our website to view our menu and book a party or meeting in our large banquet room. Once you try La Contea, your Italian dining will change forever.
Live and play on the fairway at Greystone Golf and Country Club, a serene, challenging golf destination located in Denham Springs. For tee times and membership opportunities, go to greystonecountryclub.com.
Hi, business owners. Phase 3. Woohoo! But do your customers know you're back? Well, that's where the Clarence Bug Show and Pelican Broadcasting can help. Right now, we've got great rates on advertising packages to help you get the word out. Shoot me an email at bugsclarence@gmail.com. Or better yet, call me up. I'd love to talk with you. 225-485-6839. Let's get together and make Phase 3 the best it can possibly be.
Got termites? Get Premier Pest. PremierPestServices.com.
Hey, welcome back as we wrap things up here on Exiles TV. Don't forget, right after our program comes the Clarence Bug Show, just minutes from now. We mourn the loss of a Baton Rougean here who died in Austin, Texas in the middle of a hostage drama when the hostage taker shot her and took her life. Authorities say the doctor is, let me make sure I get the name right, Dr. Catherine Lindley, is it Spate? Spate Dodson.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Dodson was 43 years old. She was identified by police during a news conference yesterday as the only victim who died during the hostage situation. Her mother is Catherine Spade.
Grandmother.
It says victim's mother.
Mother,
here in this. I'm just going to read from the article. If the information's incorrect, forgive. But this is from KLPCTV.com, the Lake Charles television station, Channel 7. The victim's mother, Catherine Spade, is a retired LSU law professor. Her father, Paul Spade, is a Baton Rouge attorney. According to police, a 9/11 caller reported that Dr. Bharat Narumanchi, 43 years of age, entered the office with a gun and was holding hostages inside the Children's Medical Group building at around 4:30 Tuesday afternoon. Officers learned there were several hostages in the building, and some were able to escape. Police learned that Narumanchi, who had been diagnosed with terminal cancer sometime earlier, was still holding Dr. Dodson hostage. Hostages that escaped reported to officers that Narumanchi, who is himself a pediatrician,
yes,
he put children at risk. He's a pediatrician.
Yeah.
He had been to this office a week ago and applied for a volunteer position. He also reported he was armed with a pistol, what appeared to be a shotgun, and had 2 duffel bags. Apparently, though, the whole thing ended with Dr. Dodson being shot.
Now, we were just told that she talked him into letting the 5 other hostages that worked in the clinic out, and she stayed.
And keep her. So that makes her, in my book, a hero.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, again, if you remember, Catherine, her mother, would occasionally call our radio show, and if we were straining over a point of law and we didn't have something quite right, she corrected it for us, if you remember.
Yep.
She was a very eminent professor of law at LSU.
We enjoyed having her as one of our, what we call P1 listeners.
Yeah. But this young doctor, I mean, it just goes to show you can do everything right. I mean, she went to Washington and Lee, got a degree in chemistry, went to LSU Medical Center in New Orleans, got her MD, did her residency at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, one of the best in the world, taught pediatrics at Harvard Medical School, and then took a position with this clinic, and she eventually became one of the partners, which means she owned this children's clinic that is affiliated with the major children's hospital in Austin, Texas. And all she did, apparently, was be the first one that this guy, for whatever reason, distraught over his terminal cancer, whatever, saw. They had no prior relationship. They didn't work together. They didn't teach together. None of that. And now, she's dead.
She's survived here by her husband, 2 daughters, and 1 son. What's missing from this story, or maybe I'm not spotting it, is what happened to Dr. Narumanchi himself.
He shot himself.
So this was a murder-suicide.
Yes.
See, it is not included in the story anywhere.
Yes, he shot himself. I just don't understand that.
Why people feel like, I understand the stress of getting terrible news like your days are numbered. The end is coming for you. Why seek to take others with you? Or why seek to commit suicide by cop? Which is what some people do at these moments.
Yeah, I wish you'd kind of waited to do that.
How you face death is as important as how you face life. I mean, ain't none of us getting out of this alive. And we're all going to get that word sooner or later that, you know, your days are numbered and you can only expect, you know, so much more life before it's all over. And I've never understood this human propensity to try to take someone with you.
Well, and you know, I don't think we know much about him at this particular point.
No.
And I find that troubling. I mean, the guy was obviously, he had a medical license. We knew he practiced pediatrics as well.
He's got a very ethnic name. Was he in fact a U.S. citizen? Was he here on a work visa? So, you know, I'd like to know more about.
But see, all of that, his information
doesn't change anything.
His information should have come more quickly than hers, because there's a lot more paperwork on him. I'm thinking,
or not.
Yeah, I would. I want to know more about this guy. Had he had a propensity to this? Did he also lose his family because of this? And maybe we'll know more by the next time we meet. But, geez, what a tragedy
for the Baton Rouge's best and brightest gone
Yeah.
at such a young age.
Our condolences.
She's beautiful. She was brilliant and well loved by her family and everyone who knew her.
This is going to be something that is going to leave a mark in Austin and here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So, God rest. But anyway, we'll find out more about this other doc next time we meet. We'll have something to say about that, I'm sure. In the meantime, Clarence Buggs is coming up next with an action-packed, fun-filled hour. And then you can see us again at 10 o'clock tonight. So until we meet again, please stay well, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Oh, and real quick, don't forget YouTube. Pelican Broadcasting on YouTube. All these programs are archived. You can watch them on demand at your pleasure.
There you go.
God bless.
Take care.
Bye-bye.